Hey guys, it's Jess and I have an amazing video for you guys today. I recently had a chance to sit down with a brand new fantasy pen creator. His name is Ryan and he is the designer behind Archimedes Pins and he's just amazing. So I have two of his pens. I purchased this one and he also sent me this little one, which you cannot purchase. I believe it's like a gift with purchase kind of thing for his first couple of customers, and I happen to fall into that category. So I'm going to turn the camera around here, or point it down more, so that you can get a closer look at these pens before we go into the interview, so you kind of have an idea of the type of pens he creates. All right, when I opened my package, this is what was in there. I had the pen that I ordered, plus he has some mascot pens, so he included one of those for me, and this lovely little note that has the artwork on the back as well as that mascot pin. They did come in these really nice thick plastic envelopes, so the pins were totally protected and of course well padded with bubble wrap and such. So first I'm going to take a look at this pen for you. This is not a pen that you can purchase. It is a, I think, gift with purchased. So this is his mascot and he made 100 of these. This is 24 of 100 and it does have the back stamp with Archimedes Mascot 2020 and hoo-hoo. It is just a really cute pen. The detail is really amazing. There are so few pens of Archimedes that this was really exciting. To give you kind of a size comparison for this first pen, it is about the same size as the Hug pen, so it's a pretty standard size, I would think. I don't know if this is an inch, inch and a half, but somewhere in that realm. Now let's talk about this one. This is seriously, I think, the heaviest pen I own. It is amazing. The detail on it is just awesome. It's called Arthur Pendragon. This pen was $65 and is still available on his website. So I'm going to go ahead and link that down below. So if you love it as much as I do, you know where to get it. So, and you have Arthur or Wart here in the beginning of the movie. And I just want to point out how amazing this skin tone is. I mean, it's really hard to get the right skin tone for a lot of things. And if you look in comparison, with this pen, you can kind of see how Elsa is a little more magenta. And I don't really like that. I like this skin tone a lot better, and I think he did an amazing job with that. You also have great detail in his shirt. Then you have Wart or Arthur as the fish and the bird and the squirrel with, of course, the sword element there. And you see the top of the stone as well as the stone wall behind him. Now, this is a pen-on-pen element, which is part of what makes it so heavy. It is also a substantially large pen. I don't know what size they call that, but it is, here, I'll show you next to the Hug pen just how big it is. I mean, it just dwarfs that pen. So on the back, you of course have his logo, which is really nice. And you have Arthur Pendragon, which is the name of this pen, limited edition of 75, the year it was done, and the fact that this is the 24th pin. So just really awesome pins. He has quite a few up on his website. He's been cranking them out, and I really think you guys should go check him out and see all of his amazing artwork. But let's get into that interview. Hi, everybody. Today I have Ryan, the creator of Archimedes Fantasy Pins, with me, and I'm going to ask him a few questions about what it's like to create a fantasy pen. So first of all, how did you decide on your name?
It's actually kind of an interesting story. At least it's interesting to me. I've actually only been doing fantasy pins for a short time. it hasn't been that long. Sometime around January
Oh,
was
wow.
really maybe just before that. So it hasn't been that long. I'm fairly new, but I'm loving it. But I was considering a name, and nothing was coming to me, and I was just thinking, what is what's one of my favorite childhood, Disney movies, and Sword in the Stone is one of them, and I absolutely loved it. And there was just so many meaningful lessons growing up,
Oh, yeah.
watching it, and I mean, not to say current Disney isn't awesome, but it seems like some of the lessons were a little bit different. But it was a different time. And so, um, actually the name Archimedes came to me literally in the middle of the night.
Oh, that's
Literally
so
in the middle of the night.
awesome.
I woke up and thought, that is a really cool name.
It is.
Yeah. And so that's really as simple as it happened. I just absolutely woke up. That name was in my head, and like, well, that's going to be it. And so the next day I drew the logo and didn't look back. I just committed to it. I'm like, I'm going to be Archimedes Pin Design.
That's awesome.
So
I absolutely love Sword in the Stone. So I am grateful that you chose that name, and your artwork has been awesome.
thank you so much. That makes me happy
Right?
that there are folks like you out there just loving it.
Yeah, my goal is to someday have all of the official Sword in the Stone pins. It might take me a while.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Yes.
So what made you decide to create your own pins?
Well, so my wife has been collecting pins for 6-7 years, and I never really was a collector. Not at all. I've watched the craziness of pin collecting for a long time, and we have quite an extensive collection of all sorts. But she is a huge Cinderella fan ever since she was little, and so her collection is extensive when it comes to Cinderella. But there is just some Cinderella that you can't find or aren't made by Disney, and so I've always been kind of the artsy type. My career is in video production. I own and operate my own video company. And so I direct and, art direct and do all this stuff. And I've always drawn and painted my whole life. And so she asked me, she's like, do you think you could design some Cinderella pins? Let's see if we can do this, because she's really liking fantasy is amazing. The fantasy art, for Disney is just, it's really pushing the boundaries of pin making, which is one of the things that I really liked about it, is that you see things that designers like myself and other designers out there that are doing, that are just phenomenal and just pushing the bounds of what manufacturing is capable of. Right. Far more than Disney has. And so in fact, we got some Disney pins in today that I think were directly influenced by some of the fantasy makers.
Which ones did you get?
Yeah, I think so. We got some of some of the recent Lady and the Tramp releases.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very reminiscent of some fantasy pins that you see. And so I think some of the influences is seeping into the artists at Disney, just because there's just so many things that you can do, and fantasy artists out there are just thinking of new ways to make pins, and it's really cool. It's really cool. Yeah. But so she asked me, that's it. She asked me, what do you think about doing it? And so I said, yeah, I'll give it a try. And the first pin that we made, do you want me to show you the first pin?
Oh yeah.
We might be jumping forward in your questions. I don't know. But so the first pin that I made is this Cinderella here. And it was the first of a series, and the second in the series is being made right now, and it's an aerial pin. Ooh. And it's a series called Unforgettable Scenes. And this is just an iconic scene, of course, in Cinderella. And you'll notice that it is Cinderella in the classic style. So it is the original look of, and that was where Disney had kind of taken princesses out of how they used to look when they were first made, and kind of generic for lack of a better term, kind of made their faces kind of generic, or, across the board. And they're a lot easier to draw now for artists. So they can kind of use subtle differences, but there's a lot of facial features that are very similar. Their eyes are kind of the same, just subtle shifts. But historically, Cinderella is the hardest to draw because she was actually one of the most human-like of all the princesses in the original artwork. And so that's one of the reasons why they started changing how they drew them, is because they were harder to draw and they took longer. And so they kind of made them more cartoony instead of less human, or made them less human and made them more cartoon-like. So I like to draw mine in a more classic Disney style. So folks my age, because newer generations, some of them have never even seen the original Cinderella. They've only seen the new art.
That's true.
And so I'm kind of committed to keeping the old style alive in my pins.
I think that's really awesome.
Thanks.
So do you actually do the artwork yourself then?
Yeah, it's a combination of a few different things, but yeah, I can draw just like the artists, and so I do, and I enjoy it. I take some shortcuts sometimes, I definitely use scenes as inspiration because I want it to look like the art, and then create unique backgrounds for them and things like that to make them stand out. So in that series, The Unforgettable Scenes, it has a similar look throughout the whole series, with transparent or translucent backgrounds with line art, just because I want the characters to just pop. I want you to look right at them and enjoy them. And then if you want to explore the pin further, you can kind of see the details in the background, which is kind of fun.
That's awesome. Do you still have some of that first pin available?
I do. Yes. And because not knowing what the heck I was doing, I pretended I did, but still, I never did it. I didn't do the traditional pre-sale, anything like that, because, and I just wanted to fully fund the pin, have it made. My wife gets the pin that she wants, and then we'll try to figure out how to sell it. And so, it was received pretty well, but still it was my very first pin. And so when you go there and you've got 10 followers on Instagram, who the heck's looking at you? Nobody.
Right.
But it was really heartening though, because one of the first pin makers, and I'm going to do a shout out for Monica C. Bottom Pins. I don't know if you've heard of them, but she, I posted the very first image of the finished pin, said, I've got this pin, who wants it? And within less than a minute, she actually responded. She was the very, very first person to respond and said, I want to trade you my Cinderella for your Cinderella. Because she had just come out with her gilded Cinderella had just arrived. And she's like, I want your Cinderella. And so that was my first introduction to it, was having a really kind of well-known pin maker go, I want your pin. That's awesome. And so
amazing. That
kind of set me on my journey of like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And so we committed, my wife and I, that I think we can probably make a little fun side. It's more of a self-funding hobby.
Right.
Making.
I totally get that.
Especially because I do all my own artwork.
Right.
It's a lot of pin makers don't. They freelance, and that's absolutely fine. They get artists to do their work, and it's fantastic. But they're able to do bigger volumes if you hire artists, right? So some pin makers out there are releasing 20 pins a month. I just can't do that. I don't have the luxury of time to do it, because I really want to control the art, and it's kind of neat to say it's mine.
Right.
And so never know, I may, ask a couple artists to do something, or we can collaborate on a couple things in the future. But for right now, it's all me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So to answer the question, yes, there is more Cinderellas available.
That's awesome. As soon as my funds are in the right order.
Believe me, I understand. It's a common occurrence on Instagram. Say, my checkbook, it's killing, it's dying, right. And I want to get everything you make, but I just can't do it. So
yeah, I made it to 300 followers this last week, and
awesome.
So my pin that I had put out there as my prize, I went and ordered today, which was the jumbo official Sword in the Stone, where he's pulling it out of
the big daddy pin. Yes.
Right?
Yes. I don't have that one.
Big chunk of my pin budget for the month.
Wow. Did you trade someone or what? Or no, you didn't trade. You bought it from somebody?
Yeah, I bought it off of eBay because
Amazing.
I haven't been able to find anybody who is willing to trade it.
Nope. Nope. And it's going to get harder and harder.
Right. And the longer I waited, I figured the price was going to go up. All right. Do you have a favorite pen that you've designed so far?
Uh, I do. I have a favorite pin, and it's a pin that you have.
Oh, I really
Yeah.
love that one. I was
Yeah.
surprised at how big it was when it got here.
Yeah. I designed the thing and I still was surprised, it's, I designed, so this is my favorite pin
Which
so
is
far.
awesome.
It is. And you have to hold it in your hand to really understand what it's like. It's
It's got
when I
some
when I when I
depth to
when I
it.
got it and looked at it the first time, I was like, wow, I made that, first of all. And I just couldn't believe just the quality of it and the heft. And I mean, it's a collector's item. It's not, you don't wear it, you know,
Yeah, it's
but if
going to
you
go
did,
right on this wall behind me.
oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I'd love to see that. But so Arthur Pendragon is the name of that pin. And it actually, I always had planned on it being a small series, that pin. And I just released the artwork, the Madame Mim artwork. I don't know if you've seen it, but so it is going to have a companion, and it will have a third one that will be Merlin. And so, and I won't go past that. It'll be just those three.
Right.
Of that, for that series. I don't want to go crazy with that series. I think having three of those as a series in a frame would look just so cool.
Yeah, that would be really awesome.
Yeah. So all themed kind of to their colors, So that is my favorite pin. It was actually the very first pin I designed in Sword in the Stone themed. It was the first one, even though others actually came out before it was in hand, just because of how it was made. It took a lot longer than the rest. But I would say second to that, and I don't just do Sword in the Stone. That's just kind of a coincidence. But my second favorite is actually the War trilogy that I made. And that was I have all these pins in front of me. You can't see, which is so fun. It was a trilogy of three pins. Yeah. So these two and the bird variant of them.
Yeah.
It actually has been the most successful pin that I've created.
Oh, that's interesting.
They're sold out. You cannot get one. Of any of the three variants, they are not available. They actually sold out in 24 hours. It was
That's so
pretty
awesome
crazy
for you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So not all the pins are like that. Sometimes you just get one right, and that was one of the series that just happened. And that actually, those are part of another series as well. There's going to be a Merlin trilogy and also a Mim trilogy that will go with those, and they'll all be themed the same. So I just want to make things that people can put together and just look at them.
Right?
Yeah.
So I know some artists give the different stages of the pins sent to them. Have you done that, or do you just get the final pin?
I haven't done that where I've got, like a chaser version and things like that. I haven't done that. That actually might be cool to do to get that, because it'd be really easy to do. All they have to do is they just set one aside for each stage it's at. And then it comes. But no, mostly depending on the complexity of the pin, I'll do what's called get an extra sample or an artist proof. Then it takes like 4 or 5 weeks longer to produce a pin when you do that, because they really produce that one pin and they walk it through all the stages, getting your approval check marked all the way, which is what I did with Arthur. Just because it was so complex and it was one of my first, and building a new relationship with a manufacturer, you don't know really what all their skill levels are, what their customer service is like, and all that stuff. And so I wanted to be really cautious and walk this pin through every step and make sure it was done right. And they did a wonderful, wonderful job on it. And so what you can do is kind of start to trust them. And some pins I haven't done an artist proof on, just because it's more simple design, and you kind of build a relationship with the manufacturer, and you can say, all right, I trust you to do this one all the way through. And they send photographs of each step, and you can kind of do basically the same thing as an AP, an artist proof,
Right.
Except it's streamlined for them a little bit better. They don't have to, they can, if they know they got it right, they can continue on with the rest of the, they can put the enamel in all 50 of them instead of just one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But you gave me a good idea. I think I'm going to actually do one and actually get all the stages sent. I think that would be really neat to have a board with that.
Right? I think you should, just because it's such a big process.
Yeah. I wish I would have done it with the trilogy, with the Work trilogy, because they were so neat looking when the enamel was in them, just in the characters, and then they were plated and all the backgrounds were just silver plate. It looked so cool that way. And I thought, man, those would be really neat pins just like that by themselves. But I didn't even think to ask.
Yeah, right? So let's talk a little bit about what it's like to create a pen. So first you have to find your manufacturer. How did you go about doing that?
So I did a lot of investigating first, and wasn't having a lot of success, just because you just don't know how honest is everybody. You can go to a place called, Alibaba, and if you type in enamel pin making, you'll just get inundated with so many manufacturers. And how do you sift through them? You don't know, because they all kind of say the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can kind of go find websites that talk about, people have given reviews, other pin makers say this is who I use and everything. But there was another pin maker that kind of befriended me and gave me a couple hints. And I was very lucky, very fortunate to have landed a very, very good manufacturer kind of right off the bat.
That's awesome.
However, I would recommend that if anyone don't make a pin like Arthur your first pin. That's just a bad idea. And it wasn't, but even Cinderella, who was my very first pin, that's a very sophisticated pin to do a 3x3 with transparent enamel and all kinds of intricacies with custom back stamps and all that. I don't recommend doing that as your first pin. Do something really simple, a little 1.5-inch pin that you can invest $150 or $200 in. Right. That you're committed to, like, if this turns out bad, I'm not going to, go jump off a cliff. I'm going to be okay. So that's how I would go about it. If I were to do it all over again, Cinderella would not have been my first pin. It's just, that's just the nature of me. I want to always create really pretty big stuff. Right. And so that's how I started it. And I just got lucky, honestly, that it turned out as well as it did. Right. That's awesome, though. Yeah. So when you're designing a pin, obviously you draw it. How do you go about picking the right colors and communicating that to the manufacturer? You're so limited because you're limited to Pantone colors. You're not limited to the RGB scale that you see in a computer, which is over 1 million colors. You just don't. And I can't tell you how many Pantone colors are, but there's not a lot. I mean, there are hundreds, but it's still not a lot. And so picking them can be painstaking. I like to actually throw a still frame up of the actual movie. I go to Disney. I go to the Disney network, Disney Plus, and I throw up a still frame that I think best represents the colors, because they've all been remastered now, which is kind of cool. All the movies have been remastered. And so the colors that I saw, say Sword in Stone, for example, if you were to throw in a VHS movie, if you had one, they wouldn't look like they've actually looked today, because they went in and remastered them to what they originally were. And so that's really cool, because I have all these swatches, these digital swatches on the Pantone, the Pantone colors, and I match them up. And whatever's the closest. It is very hard to get one identical. And sometimes you can get them really, really close, close enough that no one would question it. So the first Cinderella I made that I've showed you, her hair is too blonde. That's not her hair color. Oh. But I just made another Cinderella that I was able to actually find almost exactly what her kind of strawberry blondish hair color is. And so that's forever what I will make her hair, because it is the closest Pantone that you can find. So that's how I do it. I try to make them, it depends on how stylistic you're trying to take your design. Like I said, I try to make them as close to what people would remember them as watching them. Because really my goal is if you can look at my pin and think of a memory while you watch the movie, then that's kind of what my approach is. I would like you to be sucked into the pin and be kind of caught in the moment that it's representing. That's what my goal is. And so you can do that with color, and you do that with the accuracy of the art. My wife always says, your pins have to be beyond reproach. If they are, then you've done something. And what you don't want to do is have people talking, saying, it's good, but the skin tone was just a little pink, or whatever it might be.
Right.
And you see conversations go on like that. And so I try to make it as accurate, and I take it as serious as possible while having fun, because it is fun. It is fun. But that is one of the comments that I get from a lot of folks, is that the colors are really good. Because sometimes you'll get a pin in your hand and you're like, wow, did they miss that? They really missed the color on that one. So anyway, that's how I go about picking the colors. I just want to be as genuine as possible, unless I'm trying to do something really artsy. But other than that, I really try to pick it. Like the latest Cinderella I did, this is the second one in the series. This is from a stained glass series that we're doing called the Love series. And the first one was Aurora. Cindy is the second. And I got her hair color perfect in that one. But the stained glass heart is so cool. But her dress is also accurate. It's not the blue dress. Her dress is silver. The reason it was done in blue so many times is because in the shadows it turns blue in the movie. And so everyone makes it blue. Predominantly, that's what you'll find. 95% of all Cindys out there have blue dresses. And my wife said, you will not make a blue dress Cindy, or we won't be married anymore.
Right.
So I committed to not doing that. And so she has a silver sparkly dress.
That's awesome. Hey guys, so I'm realizing as I'm editing just how long this interview is. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it here, and we'll pick up with another video continuing and finishing the interview tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, and I can't wait to show you what happens in the second part of this interview. So go ahead and check out his designs down below. I'll leave links to all of his Instagram and website and everything. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.